Hello, I'm the Raptor from Fortnite, or whatever the hell people want to pay me for. But you clicked this video because you wanted to learn about NPR character creation. Well, let me tell you all about it. So some dude paid me to tell you about all this weird stuff that you video game nerds want to learn. So today we're going to be going over things like modeling, texturing, sculpting, retopology, shading, and weight painting and rigging. But all these fun things all combined to make this weird stuff you like called video games. The NPR process always begins with character reference. Now, what is character reference? It's just a bunch of stills of the character drawn, featuring their characteristics in their portrait. So you, the modeler, can ascertain the proper aspects and proportions of their body and their wardrobe. So the most important thing about the reference sheet is the pose library and the angles at which the character is drawn, because you want the 45, the straight on, and the 90 degree. Why? Because it captures their full proportions properly, which you can create in 3D. And the other thing you'd like is a pose library of their face, so you can stylize that properly, and more importantly, capture the essence of their characteristics without saying anything or having them animated or whatnot. Sculpting. It's a really important process to get the proper base mesh for your character. Now, what does that entail? Well, simply, you get a high-res mesh, and you use sculpting tools to help form it towards the curvature, the proportions, and more importantly, the whole base shape of the body. And that will serve as the basis for the retopologized model, which is basically the same as the sculpted model. It's just that it's a lower resolution and easier to animate with in real time. The more important thing is to capture the look of the sculpt with texturing, which we will do in the next few steps. Retopology. What is that? It's basically when you create a new mesh on top of the sculpted mesh by replacing a bunch of quads and vertices and faces, so you can capture the base shape without the full resolution. So to do that, you need to follow everything is done with proper edge flow. Everything is made with quads, and you need to follow the curvature of the body. So the main reason why you do retopology is that when a mesh deforms, say like this, you don't want unevenness in the smaller resolution model. So you do that by following the curves of the face or any organically proportioned part of the model, and you make sure the edges go to or away from it. You also want to make sure that edge flow is properly aligned and it's closed properly with and make it organic. So rigging is basically when you take the completed mesh and you assign weights to it to a thing called armature or bones in order for those things to control the animation, and more importantly, parts of the mesh that will deform and whatnot. To do that, you basically mimic the human skeletal system for characters. And if you look closely, each bone is assigned a weight to a certain amount of part of the mesh. And then when that thing is moved around in a scene, it will take the mesh with it, therefore creating animation. For example, if you take the shoulder in this, and do like that. So, also texturing, really important. Texturing is informing the computer software to figure out how this model will look if it's shown under light. Now basically, when you do NPR texturing, you're focused on the albedo, so color maps, the ambient occlusion, so the shadows, if anything, and sometimes the line art, which will be part of the alpha channel. But if you figure out texturing, the more important thing to work around that is the shading and the vertex normals that help align towards something more stylistic rather than realistic. Okay, so the big thing about shading is to figure out the node editor. To do that, it's basically the Adobe layer system, just without things going down. Instead of things affecting the layer affecting what's beneath it, you could take attributes and spread it out amongst other components. Now, to do something for NPR shading, it's going to look something like this. the base color doesn't necessarily reflect a spectrum, but rather a state whether it's just on or off. So then that way you get like the really basic two-tone shading. So, and yeah, once you get into more complex workflows and like professional level designs, these node trees can look pretty crazy. Alright, so rendering is the final part. It's actually the best part, also the most stressful, because you're just hoping your thing doesn't set on fire and burn everything and destroy your whole livelihood. So when you render, you're basically telling the computer what parts to process when and how in order to make the final image. So you want to focus on the certain kind of passes like ambient occlusion, roughness, color, normals, and whatnot, and to set which kind of engine that works. For Blender, we're just going to use Eevee, because that's the best way to do things in real time, and to do sort of like this game style, like anime or cartoon shade kind of thing. And once that hits, just hit render, find a place for it to load, and hopefully it works out. All right, well that's that. That's the NPR character workflow. Now you can overwork a bunch of nerds in front of a computer for 50-hour weeks. Yeah, that should be fun. NPR, yeah. Gonna get paid now.